Welcome to the College Admissions Collaborative highlighting engineering and technology virtual college fair. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions. And this presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at strivescan.com/CACHET. Now I'd like to turn it over to our presenters from Wentworth Institute of Technology. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. Just give me 1 second to get our presentation started, and then we will go ahead. Okay. So my name is Emily Casey. I am an admissions counselor here at Wentworth Institute of Technology. First off, just want to say thank you all for joining our information session tonight. I know that there are hundreds and hundreds of Zoom calls out there that you could be joining, so we just appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit about Wentworth. This info session is going to be 45 minutes. We'll save some time for questions and answers, but you can ask questions throughout this entire thing. So feel free to send questions in the Q&A feature within this webinar, and then either myself or a colleague will answer them, and we will also be answering them at the end too. So feel free to send them throughout, and we'll save that space at the end of this presentation for any questions that you might have. We also know that you're all coming from different parts of an admissions timeline. So maybe you're someone who's looking for next year, or maybe you're planning 2 years out. So this presentation is going to be a good general overview of Wentworth, but feel free to ask those more specific questions depending on where you are in that process. So Wentworth was founded in 1904. We were really founded with the purpose of furnishing education in the mechanical arts. So given that this is a CACHET information session and college fair that you're attending, you probably have some interest in those STEM fields, and we've really stayed true to that. We'll go over our majors on the next slide, but we really were founded with that mechanical arts background. We have grown since 1904. Our total enrollment now is about 4,500 students, putting us in that small size school category. And we'll talk a little bit later on too about what the benefits of that small school are. This slide here, you can see just a general demographic breakdown of our students, kind of where they're coming from and what that makeup looks like. We also do have students coming from some pretty further away places. We have students coming from 36 different states and 70 different countries. So we really do value those different perspectives that they're able to bring to our campus too. And on this slide here, you can see all of the majors that we're offering at Wentworth. Internally, these are broken up into 5 different schools. So we have our School of Architecture and Design, our School of Computing and Data Science, our School of Engineering, our School of Management, and then lastly is our School of Science and Humanities. So no matter where you fall within these majors, you will fall into one of those 5 schools. Definitely helps with some advising, and internally those structures are going to help you to have those closer connections with your professors and belong to that school. When you are applying to Wentworth, though, you are applying to a major, not necessarily the school. So your application is still going to Wentworth. It's just to the specific major that you're applying to. I do want to highlight some of the majors on here, and definitely ask us questions in that Q&A if you want to hear a little bit more about a specific program, but just a couple of ones to note. So our architecture program does have a 4+1 option, meaning that you'll do your bachelor's degree in that 4 years, and then you can spend 1 year getting your master's in architecture. The reason that's really important for architecture students is that a master's degree is that professional degree required for licensures and a couple other things in the field of architecture. So it's a really big benefit to be able to do that degree in just 1 year, that master's program, stay right at Wentworth for that 5th year, and kind of gain that extra experience, extra degree that's especially needed for your major. We do have a couple other programs that are now offering 4+1s. So if you are someone who's interested in one of those types of programs, doing a double leopard program or just looking at other master's degrees, it's also a great opportunity to add on to your bachelor's degree. Some of the newer majors on this slide too, the newest one out of all of them is computer science and society, which is launching this coming fall semester. It's kind of a hybrid between a computer science degree and more of a humanities degree, and really focusing on how society can be applying computer science principles and technology into society to solve some societal problems. So if you're really interested in that, it's a brand new program for us. Some of our other new ones you'll see are applied sciences, which really functions as a pre-med track for a lot of students. It's going to focus on biology, chemistry, and physics within that major. And then the other newer one is going to be cybersecurity. So definitely an up and coming field. We see a lot of different jobs and co-op opportunities through that cybersecurity program. So depending on when you started looking at Wentworth, maybe you didn't know we had those programs, but just ones to keep in mind. We also, in addition to these majors, do have 24 total minors. So if you're looking at this list and know that you want to tack something else on, or maybe just focus on something else in addition to your major, just know that we do have minors that you can add on. And like I mentioned, when you are applying to Wentworth, you do have to have a major. We don't have an undecided major for students, and you'll just note that on your application. All right, so we're going to move into why Wentworth, why our students are finding really good experiences, and kind of what sets our classrooms and our students' experiences apart. So first off is our focus on action-oriented learning. Our students really spend a lot of time in more authentic and real-world platforms. So our classes are going to have that hands-on project-based curriculum. We're really getting our students into those spaces where they're spending time learning with the technology or the studios that are really parallels to what they're going to be doing in the professional world. I think this slide gives you a good example. Obviously, hands-on learning looks really different for an architecture student than how it does for someone in biological engineering. So you can see the different types of hands-on learning our students are doing really varies major to major. But it's really important for us to have those spaces on campus, especially because our students are so rooted in technology, science, and design heavy majors. They have to have those spaces on campus to gain those hands-on learning experiences. So we have 24 state-of-the-art laboratories and maker spaces on our campus. Our main maker space is called Accelerate. It was founded in 2012, and it's really a hub for students that have those entrepreneurship or innovation skills or want to work on those types of skills. So you're going to focus on more interdisciplinary work. You're going to work with other students across different majors, faculty members, staff members, the Boston community in our neighborhood, and then also our alumni networks are really going to be there. So if you're someone who is constantly, inventing new things or tinkering to update projects and different products that you use, it's a really great space for you. And it also can be funded. So Accelerate so far has given out hundreds of thousands of dollars to fund students' ideas or companies that they want to start. So it's a really great space for students that have those entrepreneurship skill sets. The other space that we have is a little bit more informal, more of a student drop-in space, but this is our technology sandbox. So it's housed within our library. And like I said, it's more of a drop-in space for students to learn about different pieces of technology or just play with it, kind of work on their skills within, different pieces of equipment, whether that's 3D printing or laser cutting or a fabrication lab. There's some recording equipment, virtual reality. So there's a ton in that technology sandbox that really is just kind of for casual learning for our students to learn from other students in different majors, or just to teach themselves how to use those different pieces of equipment. Going off of that hands-on learning approach is really our co-op program. This is the kind of center of our academics. It connects our students to the professional world, and that's the whole goal of it, is to get our students that professional experience, especially in these STEM fields. So at Wentworth, students are required to complete 2 full semesters of a co-op. Most students are going to be doing this one semester their junior year and one semester their senior year. The only exception to that is architecture. Architecture will do theirs one semester in their sophomore year and one semester in their junior year. Co-ops are pretty similar to internships. At Wentworth, they're going to be full-time. So students are typically working 32 to 40 hours a week. Most of our students will also be paid, and those that are averaging somewhere between $14 and $20 an hour for those paid positions. And then in addition to that, co-ops can be completed anywhere. So the Boston area is a great spot for our students, especially in those tech and design fields. There's some great companies in the Boston and greater Boston area, but you don't have to stay kind of where our campuses are in Boston. We have students that go home and they're from a different state or just from a little bit further outside of the city. They go home and work at a company close to home. We have students that maybe have always dreamed of working at a specific company, and that happens to be in Chicago, then students can go out there. Or if they just want to explore a new city, we really have students completing their co-ops all over the country in these different cities for some different companies. You can see a small example of the companies on this screen here. We have a ton that constantly are coming back looking for more Wentworth students. So this is really just a small number of the companies that we see our students constantly working at. And then on the left here, you can just see the outcomes of what this co-op program does for our students. So 97% of our graduates have a full-time job in their field, or they're in a graduate degree program, and that's within 6 months of graduation. So they're finding those jobs easily because they have that technical competence in their field, because they're graduating with a minimum of 8 to 10 months of professional full-time paid work experience in their field, where they're gaining those skills and also gaining a really wide professional network. So the program is really the heart of Wentworth, and a big part of our students' hands-on learning experience also comes from these co-op semesters. We have an office that oversees this. They help our students from start to finish. So resume reviews, writing cover letters, mock interviews. They also host interviews on our campus sometimes. They host a co-op fair every year that brings employers on campus who are looking to hire co-op positions. We don't assign co-op jobs to students. It's more we prepare them for like a real world job application where they're advocating for themselves in these types of interviews and in their skill sets written on their resume. So our students are applying for co-ops the same way you apply for a job, but we have that whole office there to kind of guide them through that and support them in finding those different roles. And just to give you a student example, Liv is currently one of our senior students. She's an industrial design major, and she actually has done her 2 co-ops at Hasbro. You don't have to work at the same company twice. Liv just really enjoyed her experience and chose to do that. So she has done both a model shop co-op and a product design co-op at Hasbro. And I think the big takeaway here is that in Liv's quote here that you can see at the bottom of the screen, she mentions that she would get to work alongside and collaborate with designers and engineers. So that's pretty expected for our students in their co-op positions. They are not doing busy work. They really are working alongside the designers or the engineers or the technicians, whatever their role is. They are doing professional level work for the company. They are gaining experience in their field. They're not just doing busy work. Their work that they're doing for the company really matters and makes a difference. So it's awesome that Liv's had that experience, but it's not rare. That's typically what we hear from students, is that they learned a lot and they were treated as if they were a full-time paid employee out of college. We know that this program also is pretty complex and maybe pretty different from what you've heard when you're starting your college search process. So do not hesitate to ask us questions about this one. We know, like I said, that it's a little bit different from what you might be seeing at other schools. Moving more into our student experiences, I mentioned earlier, we are a small school with about 4,500 students. Because of that, we have really small class sizes for our students, and that's something we really value. Our average class size is 19. You're going to get to know your professors. They are going to get to know you. You will be able to ask a question after class or swing by their office hours. We think those relationships are really important, especially in these programs that we're offering. If you're struggling in an engineering or a math class, you want to be able to ask for help from the professors teaching the class. You want that relationship. And so we really help foster that with that small class size. So average class size, like I said, is 19, and we have an 18-to-1 student to faculty ratio. So you're just going to get to know those professors and the staff on our campus pretty well. We also guarantee housing for all 4 years, and that includes your co-op semesters too. So if you are doing your co-op in the Boston area and you'd rather live on campus, Even though you're not taking classes during that co-op semester, you're still able to live on campus if you would like. Coming in as a first year student, we do have 2 different styles of housing that students can end up in. So you can either be in suite style, which is where you'll live with a smaller group of students. Typically that's 6 to 12 students, where you'll have singles, doubles, and triple bedrooms. You'll have your own bathrooms and common areas just for the small group of you. But you also could be in traditional style, where it's more standard what you think of when you think of a first year college residence hall, where you'll have one roommate in a long hallway. So you'll get to make friends with the entire hallway worth of people in your area. And then there'll be communal study spaces and bathrooms on those floors. So 2 different styles that students can kind of choose a preference over. As you move up through our housing, you will see more things like smaller suites and more apartment style housing for upperclassmen students. And then our student life is also really important to us. We know that academics, of course, are a major factor, but that social experience is just as important for the 4 years that you're here. We have 65 clubs and organizations that students can join. And then we also have 18 Division III athletic teams. If you are looking for varsity athletics, it's great to connect with the coaches over to talk to any of those sports teams. For our clubs, they really range in size and topics. So we have academic affiliated clubs, ones that are typically directly connected to your major. Sometimes they're professional associations. We also have more general interest clubs, so something like a gaming club. We have a costume design club. We also have identity or culture-based clubs. So anything tying to that, we have our National Society of Black Engineers. We have our National Society of Women Engineers. So anything kind of tying back to one of your identities. And then we also have club level sports. So if you are someone who does not want to commit to that varsity level sport time commitment or athletic commitment, then you can join club sports just as a more casual, like I said, less of a commitment way to keep playing sports or pick up a new sport. On top of everything we offer, we're also part of something called the Colleges of the Fenway. So this is a really great resource for our students. It is a partnership we have with Emmanuel College, Simmons University, MCPHS University, and Mass Art. So all of these schools are less than 1 square mile in our neighborhood, and our students gain academic experiences through here. So our students can cross-register for any classes at any of those 4 other institutions. I think that's especially beneficial for Wentworth students because we are a tech and STEM focused university that if you're looking to take maybe a foreign language class or pick up some extra art classes, you can do those at those other schools. Wentworth might not necessarily offer the class you're looking for because we are so STEM focused, but you still have access to some of those classes through the Colleges of the Fenway. There's also a couple minors that you can pick up through the Colleges of the Fenway. So if you're just looking for something a little bit more broad, you still can take those classes through the COF. On top of that, our students can also join the intramural sports through the Colleges of the Fenway. So even a less of a time commitment than club sports, really more just pickup games and leagues that are run between all 5 schools. You can join any of the clubs at those other schools. So if Wentworth is missing a club that you were looking for in our list of 65 clubs, you can join it if it exists at those other schools. The COF also runs a performing arts group. So whether it's theater or an orchestra or a choral group, you can join those through the COF. And then on top of that, you also just gain some resources. Some of the cafeteria spaces are open to you. Some of the gym facilities, you'll have a Fenway card. Some of the free admission into museums and things like that also comes from the Colleges of the Fenway. So just a really big kind of neighborhood resource for all of the students in this area to take advantage of. It just kind of broadens those resources that you have. All right, and then student support services. We're not going to spend too much time on these. They're things that you'll really dive into during your first year at Wentworth. But just to keep in mind, we know that that transition from high school to college can be a really daunting one for students and for families. So these are just some of the offices that work with you along that way. Your academic advisors are really just there to help oversee your academic pathway and progress, make sure that you're taking the classes you're supposed to. If you're changing majors ever or adding a minor, that's kind of the go-to support system there. I already mentioned our library and learning commons earlier. This is where our technology sandbox is housed, but this is just a great academic space for our students. It was renovated in 2016, so the space itself is really great for our students, whether they want a quiet place to study on their own or just some more group spaces for them, whether that's a private study room for a group of people or just large group tables to get some work done. It's a really great academic space. And then also the resources they offer academically are great for students, whether that is online journals, books that are in-house, or getting different sources online from other libraries and other local libraries. They're just gonna be a huge help in terms of getting those resources that you might need for a paper or a research project. Next up is our Center for Academic Excellence. They are really our hub for any type of academic help and support. So tutoring, review sessions. They're also great at working on your study skills or time management skills, any type of academic support that you might be looking for. Then we have our Center for Wellness. They wear a couple different hats on our campus. So they oversee our counseling services, which are free for all of our students. They then offer our disability services. So if you're someone looking for either a physical or an academic accommodation, that's going to be the office that will work with you to get that set up at the school. And then also wellness education. So again, we know that it is stressful to be a college student, especially that first year. You're making a lot of changes and transitions from being really independent. So any type of wellness education, stress management, things like that, they're also going to be a great resource for. And then lastly, here's our Student Service Center. They are an office that is made up of many offices. So our financial aid office, our billing office, our registrar, some of those like more behind the scenes work that you're going to be working with once you're an admitted student. They're going to be a really great resource for you to talk to about things like scholarships or getting registered for classes or things like that. And then of course we are in Boston, which is a great place to be. So we have a 31-acre campus in the Fenway neighborhood. It is really easy for our students to get around our neighborhood. I do think sometimes when you think of a school in the city, you picture students, taking a bus across the city to get from building to building or from the academic buildings to the residence halls. And it's not the case for us at Wentworth. Our buildings are all adjacent to each other in the same area. You can kind of see it in this bottom left photo down here. You can see these are some of our main academic buildings and our residence halls are right along here. So it is really nice for our students to be right there. We do still have those outdoor spaces of a quad and things like that, but our students take a couple steps out and they're on Huntington Ave in Boston. So it's kind of the best of both worlds what we have here. We're also, being in the Fenway neighborhood, of course, have a ton of more historic places around us and some great Boston highlights. Fenway Park is less than a mile away from our campus. You can see the Prudential Center is right down the street in this photo. The Museum of Fine Arts is across the street. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum is right next to some of our residence halls too. So again, just a great place to be for our students to get out and explore. Our students get free admission to those museums. So we know oftentimes, they'll go do their homework in the Museum of Fine Arts and it's totally free for them to go do their homework in an art gallery instead of in their residence hall. So some great resources for them overall. And then for transportation in the city, we also are in a great spot. We are right between both the green line and the orange line. So for students that are trying to kind of get in and out of the city a little bit or get to other parts of the city, that T is going to be a great system for them. It also connects you to more of like the Amtrak trains. It connects you to the Boston Logan Airport. So just a lot of easy accessibility by having both of those lines right there. All right, from here, we're going to transition a little bit more into our admissions process. I said this at the beginning, but I know everyone on this call is coming from a different part of the admissions process. So I'm going to make this pretty general. And then if you have specific questions, depending on when you're planning to apply to Wentworth, feel free to ask those in the Q&A and we'll make sure to address that. This is just a broad overview of the admissions process and the admissions timeline. So if you are a freshman, sophomore, or junior in high school, you fall into this first category up here. I know it's not August to September right now, but you're in a good spot to start kind of exploring your colleges, exploring what majors you might be interested in. In the fall of the year that you're planning to apply to college, of course, you need to be looking out for things like financial aid. That's something to pay attention to throughout your entire college search process. It also will be the time during the fall where schools will be offering open houses, which are just great events to go to. Hopefully those will be in person for you all in the coming year or so. But just some great opportunity to start visiting campuses. Wentworth is open for tours if you're someone looking to come to campus anytime soon. We do have tour availabilities going on following some COVID guidelines. So feel free to check out the website if you are someone who wants to come on a tour anytime soon. And then, of course, these deadlines are no longer relevant for this year. These were these past year's deadlines. So just keep an eye out over the summer is typically when colleges start to release their different application deadline dates. So just keep those in mind, especially if you're applying for maybe those November or December dates. Just try to pay attention in August when schools start to announce those different dates. And then at Wentworth, these are the things that you will need to have a completed application. So first off, and most importantly, is your application itself. We have an application on our website, or you can apply through the Common App. If you are not familiar with the Common App yet, it is a great resource for you. It benefits you in your application process. You will only have to fill out that one application and then choose the schools that you want to send it to. If you are applying on our website, you would have to do that for every single school you apply to. So the Common App just streamlines that a little bit for you, makes it a little bit easier if you're applying to multiple schools. Next off, we of course need your transcripts. Typically your high school guidance office would be sending those to us. At Wentworth, we require one letter of recommendation, either from a teacher or a guidance counselor. So we know that sometimes you have maybe a boss, a supervisor, or a coach, or a club advisor, or a director of your theater organization, anything like that, who you might also want to submit a recommendation letter from, and that's totally fine. We just need to have at least one from a teacher or guidance counselor, but if you sent us a second or a third one, that would be fine. We would still read it and consider it in your application. Next up would be your personal statement. So this is your college essay. We don't have any supplemental questions on our application. So this is just that standard college essay. I know this is often the most daunting part of your college application. It typically stresses some high school students out. So just keep in mind, it's really the only part of the application where we get to hear your voice. We get to hear who you are directly from you. Everything else tends to be, just a box that you filled in, or your transcripts, your grades. Your essay is a really great place to tell us who you are, show us your interests, be creative with it. I love hearing students' stories. It's my favorite part of the application. So just make sure you spend some time with it. It's also, of course, a way for us to see your writing ability. So definitely have someone else read it over for you. Make sure those proofing and grammar errors aren't in there. But definitely just be creative. Let us see who you are, talk about your interests, if you have a story to tell, anything like that. We do have an application fee to keep in mind. And then we also are a test optional school. I know this is a big question right now. The past year of getting a test, if you were able to even schedule a test. Wentworth has been test optional for about 2 years now. So we were test optional before tests were hard to come by. So totally up to you if you want to send us any type of standardized test score. If you do choose to send us them, if you got some good scores that you're happy with, absolutely send them to us and we will still consider it. If you didn't get to take the test or won't be taking it, or the scores aren't where you want them to be, absolutely no pressure to send those to us. It doesn't hurt you in any way. We will just use your GPA as your main academic score. So don't worry about not sending them to us. It's your decision to make. I also think your guidance offices tend to be great resources to have those conversations with. So if you're not sure whether or not you should be submitting that to us, feel free to talk to your guidance counselors. They tend to, like I said, be a good resource and know what type of scores you should be sending and which ones are maybe best to hold on to. And then just to note, if anyone on the call would be a transfer student or an international student, there are a couple other things you would need to finish off your application. I also like to let you know in advance, a couple of our majors do have a math requirement. So if you would be applying to the applied math program, the applied science program, computer science, cybersecurity, or any of the engineering majors and disciplines, you need to have pre-calculus before you start with us in the fall. So if you're a junior and you're still planning out your schedule for senior year right now in high school, it would be great to add pre-calculus on if you wouldn't already have been taking it. Just trying to get that in there. If you're a sophomore, you have 2 years to try to plan that out. We do have some options for students who will be graduating without pre-calculus. Might involve you taking a summer course. So just keep that in mind. I try to catch students as early as possible. So if you have the time to add pre-calculus into your schedule for senior year of high school, I always recommend it. Maybe you already are taking it, and that's great if you are. But just try to get that class while you're still in high school. And then just a brief overview of our tuition and financial aid. I know this is probably the most important pieces of information that you need for college decisions and college research options. So a couple things to keep in mind. You can see our tuition and our average room and board here. This is for the 2021 to 2022 semester. So the total cost there, if you add those two up, it comes out to right around $52,000. That's what we'd call a sticker price. That is before any financial aid is applied, any scholarships or anything like that. So at Wentworth, we do have 2 different types of financial aid that students can receive. First, we have our merit scholarships. This is something all students are automatically considered for. So you don't have to apply for merit scholarships. By applying to Wentworth, you're automatically considered for that. If you are awarded a merit scholarship, you would find that out right in your acceptance letter. It would tell you the amount and what you've been awarded, like I said, right in your acceptance letter. The other type of financial aid is need-based. So this is something that you would have to submit a FAFSA for. That is the only federal form that we need in order to kind of review what you would have for need-based aid. That can be scholarships, grants, or loans. So there's a couple different options through there. And then just keep in mind too, when you do get to that point where you might have a financial aid package, you do have a financial aid counselor within that office who is there as a resource for you. So there's someone who can walk you through what your FAFSA reports, what type of financial aid you've qualified for, what your bill would look like, things like that. So the same way you have an admissions counselor in our admissions office, you do have a point person in the financial aid office too. And then some of the other numbers that we put up here are just things to keep in mind. Wentworth does offer students a really great return on investment. So I mentioned earlier, our co-op programs are paid. So just keep in mind that students are going to have 2 full semesters where they don't pay tuition and they work a full-time job where the average earnings are $16,000. So just keep that in mind, that students will have those 2 incomes during their junior and senior year. And then our average starting salary for students is $64,000, which is a really great place for them to be starting out, right after graduation in these different jobs. So again, just something to keep in mind when you are considering a college. That return on investment is really important. And again, I mentioned tuition and financial aid is probably the most important factor in your college decision making. So just some other numbers that we'd want to make sure you guys kept in mind. All right, we've left about 10-15 minutes for questions. So I will check out our Q&A and see if we have anything so far. Okay, not seeing any questions come in yet. If you do have questions, feel free to send them in now and I'm happy to answer them, or maybe I mentioned something earlier that you want to hear a little bit more about. I'm happy to talk about. Yeah, so it looks like I got a question just asking to talk a little bit about the cybersecurity program. So our cybersecurity program is really focused on going to be that cybersecurity classes and really have that focus within your classes. It does have some strong connections to those computer science degrees and programs that we have. It's just going to take you that one more step narrow into the cybersecurity fields. The great thing with the cybersecurity fields right now is it is a constant growing field in terms of the job market and co-op positions for our students. That cybersecurity curriculum is preparing students for those types of jobs because they are something that is growing and changing, like I said, constantly, day by day. That field is just, it almost can't keep up with how fast technology is growing. So it's a really important field right now. I mentioned it was newer, so I think it's in its second or third year now. I can send it or have someone send a link in the chat, with a link to our course catalog. I think it's a really great way for students to learn more about the programs and see what classes actually make up their majors and programs. So we can send that in the chat. If you click in there, you can go to your specific major if you're looking at cybersecurity, and it'll lay out semester by semester what classes you'd be taking and when you'd be taking them. So definitely check out that, that part of our course catalog. I just think it highlights those majors really well, and then also shows you, like I said, what exact classes you'd be taking. You also can kind of look through the classes themselves. You can pull up course descriptions for those classes, see exactly what you'd be learning, what that class would mean if the title isn't super clear. So we can send that in the chat just so you can dive right into it. Yeah, and I see another question just asking about graduating with some college credits and associates in applied science. That's great. Will most or all of the credits transfer over? So something we'd have to take a look at and have our registrar's office officially go through that transcript and what type of classes that the students take in and which ones will transfer over. Our registrar's office can do that, like full course evaluation of what they have, that full transcript evaluation, and see which credits would and which ones wouldn't. It really depends on the classes, and I don't know that school's credits off the top of my head, so I can't give you a direct answer on which ones would and which ones wouldn't transfer over. But our registrar's office can do that. We also have, if you are a full transfer student, if you're attending that school, then we have a transfer admissions counselor in our office. So you always can reach out to Andrew in our office. It'll be listed on our website too, if you would be a full transfer student. But if you're in the high school level doing dual enrollment classes, then we can get you set up with our registrar to figure out, what percentage of those classes would transfer over. And then it looks like Carlo sent the link. We have a transfer credit page that kind of goes over what of those classes might transfer, which ones might not. Yeah, no problem.
If we want, we can give it a little bit more time to see if any more questions come in, or I can wrap up now. Up to you.
Yeah, it looks like we just got one more in. Asking about driving and if students would need a car. So our students can bring a car their second or later years. So your first year, you won't be bringing a car. A lot of our students would be using that public transportation to get around, or the local trains and things like that. So after your first year, you can bring a car if there's space on campus and you can get the parking passes, but not in your first year. That seems to be the last question that we have here.
Well, just put my screen up. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for presenting. When you go to close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. And we'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions being hosted, so be sure to sign up for more. And in about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all of the other sessions recordings at strivescan.com/cache. So thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, bye.